When a venerable newspaper attempted to draft a history of one of the largest, most ambitious social service agencies in this nation's history, the assigned reporter noted that it would be a greater work than any one person could ever accomplish in just a few short days. That indeed, a book could be written about the children who have entered this institution. An institution by the railroad tracks, at the corner of two busy streets, in a place called Mishawaka. The reporter worked for the South Bend Tribune, the year 1915. This is a story of hope for children and for families, the ones who need it the most. A story already more than 100 years in the making, about Cindy and Sean, Chandra and Ben, about thousands of lives that have forever been changed in a place where there's hope and no one's forgotten. A place called the Family and Children's Center. They called them the Orphan Trains. The idea? To rescue unwanted children, some as young as 5 years old, from the alleys and streets where they lived in places like New York City, to find decent families and hopeful places for them to live, places like this. An endeavor begun by a handful of women who rescued 5 infant girls right here in St. Joseph County. The year was 1882, and their tiny little orphanage had an appointment with destiny, in part because the orphan trains were bringing more homeless children to the people of Indiana than any other state in the Union. Some of those children ended up with families out west, some of them here in local homes. But by 1890, the orphanage had to move, so a 12-acre plot of land a few blocks down the street was purchased, a place to grow and to change as fast as the rest of the world was changing, something that would always be necessary because the world will always be changing. By 1906, 200 homeless children were living in this 3-story building on campus. A campus where the Wyman family would build this hospital for children so they could stay healthy, even have tonsils removed. Where children today, more than 100 years later, still play games on the original site of the playground established at the northeast corner of campus. Where the school begun for orphans today serves children with emotional and behavioral problems of all ages, who graduate from different programs and different grade levels twice a year at ceremonies just like these. Today we call this place the Family and Children's Center, an organization that has grown and changed dramatically over the years. No longer an orphanage, but still an organization that remains one of the major nonprofit human service agencies in the entire state and across the country, serving 6,000 children a year with a staff of nearly 400 people dedicated to strengthening the emotional and behavioral health of the communities we serve, with special emphasis on the needs of children and families. An organization today that's as much about prevention as it is about treatment. Through after-school programs at the Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Joseph County, which began in a treehouse as a response to rising crime rates and gang activity in South Bend. Day treatment and dormitory-style residential services for severely emotionally disturbed children and adolescents right here on the children's campus, with individual and group therapies through counseling and development services, including the prevention of child abuse and neglect through the Healthy Families program, where parents and children learn how to bond. And through the Holy Cross Counseling program, therapy for those who've experienced the trauma of sexual abuse. Today, the accredited services of the Family and Children's Center are provided right here, as always, and at other locations throughout the area where they're needed the most, leading the way to better lives for all of us. As a private, nonprofit organization that exists in large part because local people believe in the work that we do. These are the words of children otherwise forgotten as they prepared to graduate from the Family and Children's Center in 1962. My ambition is to become a nurse, Susie, an electrical engineer or electrician, Tom. I look forward to life on the outside, but doubt if I'll ever forget the friends and wonderful people I've met here at the Family and Children's Center. Ginger. When a fire destroyed the main building in 1979, community leaders raised the money needed to build a new building, the same one we still use today. More than a decade later, Executive Director L.D. Williams noted in a report to supporters that Indiana Senator Dan Coates told me that what he remembers most about his visit with us and has included in his speeches is the young man who said, "When I get to be president, I'm going to pass a law that every child must have a family." It's easy to forget about these children and families, to pretend there's no hope for their future. But among the infants on the original Orphan Trains alone were 2 future governors, a congressman, sheriff, district attorneys, lawyers, bankers, doctors, journalists, ministers, teachers, and countless business owners, all of them otherwise forgotten. If not for places like the tiny little orphanage near the railroad tracks, if not for the Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Joseph County, the Children's Campus, counseling and development services, and all of the people who help provide hope for the children and families who do have a future, the thousands of lives and the next 100 years, in a place where there's hope and no one's forgotten, a place called the Family and Children's Center. When I get to be president, I'm going to pass a law that every child must have a family.